Prince Harry's headed to NYC to attend engagements for his African Parks charity and more. Will Harry address the charity's allegations of physical abuse while on the East Coast? Let's recap everything we know. Prince Harry is traveling to New York City, where he will attend the UN General Assembly's High-Level Week and Climate Week New York, along with engagements for African Parks, the Halo Trust, the Archewell Foundation, the Diana Awards, and Travalyst. If you're thinking to yourself, African Parks sounds familiar, it's probably because it's been plagued by scandals over the last year. Back in January, an investigation by the Mail on Sunday discovered deeply disturbing accusations of violence and torture of locals in rainforests of the Republic of the Congo by guards managed and paid for by the African Parks charity. Prince Harry was its president for 6 years until enjoying a promotion to its governing board of directors just last year. The Mail on Sunday exposed first-hand testimonials from locals alleging violent encounters with the charity, forcing them to stop entering forests where they have foraged, fished, hunted, and found medicines forever. One witness who claims he saw a brutal attack by African Parks guards says that he wished Prince Harry would use his power and notoriety to intervene in order to stop the pain and suffering caused to their community. Survivor International, a London-based human rights organization, was one of the first to approach Prince Harry about the abuse in May of last year. Harry responded by saying he would make the organization aware of the situation. There was little to no improvement, so Survivor International formally asked Prince Harry to show solidarity for the locals and victims by quitting. They said, "We hope that his stepping down from the board of directors will give a clear signal to the organization that human rights abuses in the name of conservation are not tolerated anymore." Obviously, Prince Harry did not quit his post. The Duke of Sussex once said of the charity, "The African Parks model is exactly what conservation should be about, putting people at the heart of the solution." After the original accusations went public, a spokesperson for Archewell told the Mail on Sunday, "When the Duke became aware of these serious allegations, he immediately escalated them to the CEO and chairman of the board of African Parks, the appropriate people to handle next steps." In a formal statement responding to the Mail on Sunday's investigation, African Parks said, "We have a zero-tolerance policy for any form of abuse and are committed to upholding the rights of local and indigenous people." The charity manages 22 parks in 12 African countries, with 1,400 guards patrolling protected land almost the size of Britain. They claim that they save wildlife by working with local communities. If these reports are true, constructively working with local communities is actually the opposite of what is transpiring. This year, African Parks was also accused of brutality in Zambia, where locals have the right to sustainably harvest natural resources such as fish, antelope, and rabbits. According to the Mail, African Parks has managed the area since 2008 in partnership with the government. The charity says this is its only project where management responsibilities are not fully integrated, with conservation law enforcement remaining under the supervision of the Department of National Parks and Wildlife. The report explains that intimidation is a key strategy. In September of 2021, a marketplace was sprayed with gunfire, injuring villagers and innocent children. Suspects unknown, several locals told the Mail that the market shooting happened immediately after rangers arrested an individual found with antelope meat. This incident sparked demonstrations and rock throwing that damaged vehicles, including 2 belonging to African Parks. Meanwhile, locals within one of Africa's most important wetlands claim they are suffering a campaign of intimidation to stop them from fishing and hunting on their own land, while tourists arrive on safari expeditions that can cost up to £5,000 a day. One outspoken villager said, "Our home has become a nightmare that frightens us every day." Another local who was victim to gunfire begged for African Parks to leave, saying they have turned this place into hell. African Park said multiple incidents had been reported to the criminal justice system, and rangers were found to have acted in self-defense due to armed threats from suspected poachers. In a 2022 annual report, African Parks admitted that it had seen a number of unfortunate interactions between residents and the park rangers, which have led to both injury and fatalities. African Parks currently has some of the biggest donors in conservation, mostly Americans and Europeans. Howard Buffett, son of Warren, is one familiar name, plus Rob Walton, heir to the Walmart fortune, pledged $1 million over 5 years, one of the biggest single donations in the history of conservation. In a recent article by the Financial Times, they explained to African Park supporters the organization is one of the most important conservation organizations in the world. To its detractors, it's a sinister land-grabbing machine and practitioner of a militaristic model of wilderness protection they call fortress conservation. Why should these white men in shorts, in the words of one former official from an African country who dealt closely with African parks, build a state within a state where your basic approach to local people is you're a pain in the arse, that they'd be better off being somewhere else? African Park's chief executive told Financial Times that he wanted to raise African Park's tally of landscapes to 30 by the end of the decade. He also claimed that weapons are necessary both to fight off poachers and to protect rangers from dangerous animals. He says since African Parks was founded, 54 rangers have died in action. The organization admitted to the Financial Times that they were angry about a new book that slams them. The book is by an investigative journalist named Olivier Van Beeman, titled Entrepreneurs in the Wild. According to the Financial Times, it describes African Parks as a shady, militaristic organization with too much power and too little accountability. The nervous chief exec admits it starts badly on page 1, and that's the best page in the book. African Parks disputes the numerous claims in Van Beeman's book and admits that they are worried about the potential impact of donors who would this year fund African Parks' $130 million budget. In fact, there was an internal memo sent to staff warning that the organization suddenly seems to be coming under a concerted media attack. That sounds familiar. From writers peddling a narrative that pits nature conservation against humanity. While African Parks argues that private donors literally couldn't give a damn, they are worried that those with greater public exposure might cut and run. This is where I start to ask myself if Prince Harry is just African Parks' puppet, a mascot to distract from their bad behavior, allegedly. The book suggests that African Parks at one point questioned whether Harry could pose a reputational risk to them, quoting a source suggesting there were fears controversies surrounding Harry might pose a risk to the organization. However, as Newsweek points out, ultimately it appears to have been the other way around, as the allegations against Rangers have caused a reputational crisis for Prince Harry. Quoted in the Times, Van Beeman said, "My investigation shows that African Parks is an opaque organization with numerous human rights allegations made against them, including torture and rape, but is not open to external criticism." He said, "I think Prince Harry and others on the board should question the organization's model, its practices, and governance, and reconsider their own roles." The book's author also told the Financial Times that African Parks had tried to block his research, saying, "It's not my purpose to burn them, but the way they react really gives you the impression that they're hiding something." In his article in the Times earlier this year, Van Beeman exposed torture testimonials from one former African Parks ranger who explained, "You tie someone up, hands and feet tied together, behind his back, and you hang him on a stick between two branches, and then you swing him around while you hit him. It doesn't last long because it hurts a lot. When he hangs there, he says everything you want, even things he doesn't know." Survivor International spoke to the Financial Times, explaining that, in their opinion, African Parks is one of the worst actors in terms of fortress conservation, of violence by park rangers, and land grabbing in the name of conservation. They argue that conservation often rested on the racist misconception that indigenous people cannot be trusted to look after land and wildlife, of which they have been guardians for generations. I mean, seriously, we trust Prince Harry and his posse to protect a space against locals whose great grandparents lived in the same area? That's idiotic. When the Financial Times asked African Parks chief exec about the argument that indigenous people are the best guardians of wildlife, he replied, "You've got to be careful about over-romanticizing these things." In the same piece, African Parks goes into a little more detail about what the repercussions were when it came to the male's allegations. They said they knew about two of the incidents, one in which an armed guard a female and another in which a teenage boy claimed to have been groomed for. Both rangers were fired and the alleged handed over to authorities. But the other allegations, including a man who claimed to have been waterboarded by rangers, had been new. African Parks has ordered an independent investigation into these claims, led by Sherry Blair's law firm, Omnia Strategy. It makes you wonder, could all of this drama be the reason Prince Harry canned his much-hyped Africa documentary for Netflix? How can you claim to represent Africa's best interests with these accusations floating around? Do you think African Parks is hiding behind Prince Harry's royal connection? Do you think Harry will address African Parks' numerous scandals during his trip to NYC? And should Prince Harry step back from African Parks or step up and help the charity clean up its act? I want to know your opinion. Let me know in the comments below. If you made it to the end of this video, comment with a giraffe emoji so I can see you. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share with a friend. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Kinsey Schofield.